Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Friday, May 22nd briefing about COVID-19 in the community in the Eau Claire area. Again, we thank you for joining us to get up-to-date information and to learn a bit more about what's happening to respond to COVID-19. It's hard to believe that we're approaching Memorial Day weekend. I do hope everybody takes some time to enjoy themselves over the weekend. Typically, it's a weekend where we kind of kick off the summer, and we know that not only now, but moving forward into the summer, things are going to be different with this virus. It's also a time when we typically remember those that we have lost serving our country. So those that have died in the service of our country are people that we should be thinking about over the weekend. I encourage you to do that. To anyone who has lost someone to the service of our country, our thoughts are with you. I hope everyone takes time to reflect and to thank people that are currently serving our country during this Memorial Day weekend. It's also something we've regularly talked about, that COVID-19 has meant that we have had to change how we do things, and it's not the typical way we want to be with our friends and families. We want to be close and give hugs and shake hands and do all of those things that connect us as human beings. It's been hard to realize that in order to slow down the spread of this disease, we have to do things differently. We've heard a lot from people about the importance of mental health during this time and the challenges that many are having. Today we have a guest from our Human Services Department with Eau Claire County to share a little bit more about what some of those challenges are and ways that we can support people as we move forward during this time. We have a group, an incident command, that's specifically looking at mental health, the mental health of people that have COVID-19 and how they manage to get through that phase, as well as those contacts that have to stay home during the 14 days that they are quarantined, but also the general public and how we deal with this disease moving forward, and all of those people that are having to respond to COVID-19. It's not easy, and we are fortunate that in Eau Claire we have such strong experts, so we're happy to have Luke and others to be resources to us. Before he shares, I'll give you a status update on the state of Wisconsin as well as on Eau Claire County. Share a few updates, and then he will share some things about mental health, and then we'll be back to answer questions like usual. So negative cases for COVID-19 for the state of Wisconsin. We now have 172,703 negative tests for COVID-19. That's an increase of 9,465 negative results since yesterday, a big jump, which you may note. There is a lot of testing happening around the state with the Army National Guard teams and with other outbreaks across the state, and so those testing numbers are going up significantly. Positive COVID-19 tests are 14,396, an increase of 511 positives statewide since yesterday. Hospitalizations of people that have had a COVID positive test are at 2,259. About 16% of those that have tested positive for COVID-19 have been hospitalized. Close to 6% positivity rate for the state, and deaths, an increase of 9 deaths since Thursday. Again, 9 poor people, Wisconsin residents, have died from this disease, a total of 496 individuals. In Eau Claire, our data shows that we have now tested 4,178 tests have been run in Eau Claire. Of those tests, negative tests are 3,973, and we now have 95 positive tests for COVID-19, an increase of 6 positive results since yesterday. As you hear, we are getting positive results, positive cases every day almost now. I can't think of a day recently where we haven't had cases. We expect that to continue. We know that our capacity to respond to positive cases is a real issue. The community counts on us to make sure that we do strong case investigation and we follow up with all the contacts of every one of those cases. Of the 6 cases that we got, for example, today, of those 6, if they have 100 contacts each, that means we're following up with 600 people. I think it's easy to do the math that the fewer number of contacts that people have, the fewer people that have to stay home for 14 days and be self-quarantined, and the less potential for disease transmission across our community exists. So again, the importance of keeping your circle small and the importance of keeping our curve as flat as possible is there. We need slow progression of disease and not rapid progression of disease. Released from isolation are those people that are no longer considered infectious, are 58 of our 95 total cases. Our positivity rate continues to be around 5% and is going up in Eau Claire County. So just a reminder that our positive numbers are going up and our rates are going up for positivity overall in this county. And it's something that we are watching carefully. We are also carefully tracking the daily number of tests done. We had a bump, like everybody knows, when we did our National Guard testing, and we are now watching testing numbers as we go forward to make sure that we are continuing to test people in this community, those that are symptomatic, with any level of symptoms in all of our community sites. A couple of other updates. U.S. flags nationally will be flown at half-staff for those who have died of COVID-19 through part of Monday, and then remain at half-mast in recognition for Memorial Day. We have had many deaths in the U.S. from this disease, and it's important for us to continue to pay attention to that. A couple of state updates in addition to what I have shared this week. Governor Evers has made several announcements. We talked about some of them on Wednesday, but some additional announcements today about relief packages for different industries and different populations in our state. Most of these are coming from the federal dollars that are being passed down to the state. It's important to remember for all of us that these dollars are helpful because the virus not only has had an impact on those that have gotten infected, but it also has had an impact on our economy. Governor Evers announced yesterday that the Wisconsin Farm Support Program was moving forward with a $50 million investment to provide direct payments to Wisconsin farmers in support of the agricultural sector during the COVID pandemic. He also announced $15 million food security initiative to work on hunger in our state. Part of that money will go to food banks and pantries and other not-for-profits working on food insecurity. Food insecurity is not a small issue, and while it may be fairly invisible in Eau Claire, we have many, many families in this county who have food security issues, so an important effort. Governor Evers also announced yesterday a $100 million grant that will support providers most at risk for financial hardship during the COVID-19 pandemic. Financial assistance will go to emergency medical services, home and community-based services, and long-term care providers such as skilled nursing facilities and assisted living facilities. So again, dollars to support those that are responding to COVID-19. Announced yesterday, Wisconsin households that use Food Share can shop online at Amazon and Walmart. Food Share is the state's program that helps Wisconsinites who have limited access to food resources to buy that food. And Department of Health Services announced an expansion of Resilient Wisconsin. This is an initiative that last month is providing educational materials and resources for people to stay mentally and emotionally healthy. We've talked about Resilient Wisconsin previously in our media briefings, and please do go to their website on the state level to look for those resources. A couple of local announcements. So we've been getting a lot of questions as the weather's gotten nicer and as the Memorial Day weekend is looming about large events and when those are able to happen in this community. There is no crystal ball to know what is happening with the virus. We do know that the virus is here, and there's no end date on that until we have a vaccine. Nothing is specific about a date, whether it's in our order or the date of Memorial Day on a calendar, that makes it possible to say explicitly where we are going for events. What we can say is we will move forward in this community, and the recommendations at a state and national level will move forward related to major events because of the data and because of the risk. By definition, mass gatherings are risky. They bring multiple people together that are not part of the same household. There are very difficult ways. It's very difficult to come up with ways to use engineering controls that we can use in other settings to keep people 6 feet apart. It's difficult to maintain cleaning, and it's difficult to make sure that the spread of disease does not happen. For those reasons, the risk of mass gatherings remains very high. The state and the federal government, as well as our local order, all acknowledge that. Our local order, while it goes until next week, we do not anticipate that there will be significant changes around the mass gathering language of the local order moving forward after next week. We are going to be doing that based on data and based on risk. We have heard from many over the last couple of days, well, the order ends next week, so then we can start our youth baseball games, our activities, our big concerts. That date of the ending of the order is really, we did a 2-week order, and we signaled from the beginning that we would be continuing to look at data and continuing to look at risk, to look at how we best open up our community. I am not anticipating that next week the virus will have magically changed. The risk is still there, and we will be looking at ways to continue to make sure that that risk remains low for spreading of disease in mass gatherings. Even if it's possible in other states and other counties to gather as a baseball team, for example, or to have a big concert, the risk is real. And finding creative ways to have events is really strongly encouraged, whether it's a event that is a typical music concert that's now doing it over social media, or if it's something like our Chalk Fest here in Eau Claire that's also doing it as a media event rather than as an in-person event. There are many creative options, and we encourage people to take advantage of that. The Minnesota State Fair today announced that they were canceling their event, and that's for a reason. That many people together, gathered in close proximity, will provide an environment to spread disease. And that's the kind of thing that we are all needing to prevent. We all need to keep each other safe, and those events are the highest risk ones that exist. Again, last week, our order was released in an effort to allow lots of activities to happen. So we moved from a safer at home language at the state level, where everybody was mandated to stay at home unless they were doing something that was defined as essential, to a new normal that we have now, where people are able to do activities as long as some specific things are in place that are based on public health risk. That new normal is about reducing risk, and we anticipate that that will be in place for quite some time. We will continue to look at the data. Next week, Wednesday, when we're back doing our next media briefing, we'll be sharing not only the plan as we move forward for the reopening criteria and the data that we are using, but also sharing with you where we'll go next with that order. I can say to you all that it's very clear that our data right now is concerning, both at a state level and a local level. I think people can see easily that our increase of cases is there, and our need to increase capacity continues, both on the public health side and on the testing side. So I will share now that we have Luke Feedy here, who is a licensed professional counselor with Eau Claire County Human Services. He's our behavioral health administrator. He is doing some amazing things, even outside of COVID-19, to make sure that we are all having resources to stay healthy as they are connected to mental health. And today he's going to share with us a little bit, given the fact that we are all under a lot of stress with COVID-19, resources that are available in our community. Thanks for being here, Luke.
Thank you, Liska. We're going to try to message weekly. We recognize that mental health is a serious need in our community, has been, and continues to come to light as we move through this pandemic. And as we continue to move through these unprecedented and challenging times, there are a lot of thoughts, feelings, emotions that come up. While our thoughts and feelings are indeed uniquely ours, it is important to remember that we are living through this pandemic together. We, as Wisconsinites, will often, and as an Eau Claire community, will often jump at the opportunity to help or support someone else. We often reach out and connect with them, but we don't always take the time to ask for help ourselves. We're often fearful of becoming a burden or thinking that maybe we don't deserve that same help. It is imperative right now at this time that we take time to reflect on how we're doing and we ask ourselves, how am I doing? Let yourself feel whatever you need to feel and experience what you need to experience. We're in this together as a community, as a state, a nation, and a world. By reaching out to others, it doesn't make us weak, it doesn't make us a burden, but rather helps strengthen us as a community and as individuals. Never before was the saying, "the struggle is real," more relevant. We want to remind everybody in the community that it's okay to reach out and connect. There are people who care about you. There are people who are there and willing to help and support you. And we need to take the time to connect with those individuals. We are all in this together, living through this. And as a community, we will get through this together. We want to remind folks that there are resources on our Department of Human Services Eau Claire County website that are easily navigated when you go to the website. And there's certainly numbers you can call to reach out to us to connect with some of those resources. So this is an important topic, and I thank you for allowing us to take the time to message this.
Thank you for that, Luke. And I think important messages for all of us. Please stay tuned to our website. We will have regular updates there like we always do. Again, a reminder that that website is covid19eauclaire.org. We do appreciate people paying attention here to what's going on, but that website also has a lot of good information for you as you are looking for resources and content on ways to stay healthy and safe, and also ways to move forward your business or your organization. We also want you to remember that if you have questions after you look at that site, that phone number for the COVID call center is 715-831-7425. And most importantly, really think about how you're taking responsibility this weekend for the things that you are doing to keep others safe. A disease like COVID-19 is one that, yes, it's about us personally and how we are doing, but what we do makes a difference for everybody around us. So stay home if you are not feeling well. Get tested if you are not feeling well and have COVID-19 symptoms. Wash your hands. Wear a cloth face covering if you are in places where you may be in close contact with other individuals. Make that just part of what it means to be in your circle of people. The more you do it, the more people that you influence will also wear that cloth face covering. Remember that this is a virus that is still here. It has not gone away, and we need to continue to pay attention to where the disease progresses from here. There will be no media briefing on Monday, which is Memorial Day. We hope you have a safe and healthy Memorial Day, and we'll be back on Wednesday at our usual time next week. So I'm available to answer questions. Yes?
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. Does the health department plan to extend the county order that's in place right now that expires on Tuesday?
So the order expires next week, Thursday. So we will be, the question is, do we plan on extending it? We are looking at the data right now, and the data right now does not look any better or different than when we started the order. We made the order very broad as the first brush. Really everything is allowed to be open with those 6 feet distance requirements. And even with the new addition this week with those places where that's not possible, those one-on-one services, being able to have those places also open with some specific requirements. We're not anticipating any changes with that in the next order. We do anticipate looking at our data to see if there are ways to continue to consider ways to open up the mass gathering options. But again, that will be based on data. We'll know more next week. Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm characterizing you correctly. You're saying you will look at maybe loosening of restrictions for mass gatherings, looking at the data. Can you say right now, is there a chance of that, the mass gathering restrictions being loosened out as early as next week, or do you think that's a little further?
Yep, so the question is, what are we anticipating for the order next week? At this point in time, we are still looking at our data. We anticipate having an order continuing after next week. Again, we are getting that feedback, well, I can do anything I want after next week, and there are no restrictions. I know some families have received phone calls and emails from coaches, for example, like that the order will be done next week, and that in fact is not likely to happen. We will be reevaluating the data, and we will be looking at what the next step needs to be. This virus will not be gone as of next week, Thursday, so we are anticipating the need to continue to pay attention to risk and have things in place to minimize the risk of spread as much as possible. Yes?
And just real quick, I'm wondering if you could comment on something that I've seen a little bit on social media, just in the area. Folks saying that the restrictions on mass gatherings will be in place until November, attributing that information to the City County Health Department. Can you just comment on that?
Yeah, so the question was that there's some social media comments about how long the mass gathering information, the orders might be in place in Eau Claire County. And we have not set any specific date for any orders to stay in place. We likely will have orders that will be two-week period long orders, just so we have time to slowly and progressively look at what is happening in our community. Within 2 weeks, we won't know the changes that happened in the previous order completely. We'll start having a sense of any disease transmission at that point. But really, it'll take 4 weeks to know whether any reopening of any industry has been impacted. With the Safer at Home ending a few weeks ago, for example, we are only now starting to see the impact of that. So there is no date certain for how long any order will be in place. It is very clear that nationally, the White House and the CDC, as well as at the state level, there's an anticipation that this disease will be with us, this virus will be with us until we have an effective vaccine or an effective treatment. And right now, neither of those are anticipated in the near future. Our real only way to contain disease at this point is to identify it quickly, to make sure that the circle of spread is as small as possible by having our circles be small by definition, and then containing that disease from spreading in a more rapid way. All right, thank you, everybody. We look forward to talking to you on Wednesday. And again, have a good and safe weekend. Think about how you can make sure that you are doing things to signal to others that you care about the spread of this disease, and do things that keep yourself safe as well. Have a good Memorial Day weekend, and we'll talk on Wednesday.